This is Assassin's Creed Origins. We're on PlayStation 5 taking a look at this open world entry in the series that did something a little bit new in terms of really, I guess you could say, modernizing the visual and style aesthetic of the Assassin's Creed franchise, moving it more towards an RPG type of environment. And with that, let's go forward and talk about the details. We're inheriting the original PS4 Pro elements, where it would fluctuate between 1440p to 1600p with the dynamic resolution scaling, so I fully expect it to be capped off at about 1600p the entire time, which obviously isn't perfect, but it's, pretty good, and it's obviously fully smooth at 30 FPS with HDR support. So yeah, this is actually a very interesting element and release of the Assassin's Creed series. As we mentioned, it really did completely change up the formula from what we knew. It still feels like Assassin's Creed, but the scope and the scale and the design of the game has changed considerably with this particular release. I was also a really big fan of this one because of its cool Egyptian theme. So for me, I really quite like this element of history. I find it quite enticing. And yeah, it's just kind of nice to be coming out here and taking a look at the game on the platform again. Because this is actually where I had to do my review of the game when I initially got it, because they didn't have Xbox codes available at the time, which was like a huge confusion point when I went to go and take a look at my Xbox save. I was like, where is it? And I was like, oh yeah, I covered this on PlayStation. So anyways, you're leveling up your character. There's a bunch of different skill trees and things like that. But the game is obviously just absolutely massive in terms of scale. There are some water-based aspects to it, but for the most part, you're just kind of going around on land. There's lots of different enemy types. You're able to explore areas that require traversal, which are like more the city landscapes. And then there's also these segments which are a lot more kind of open and desert-like. It also has a neat connection to the modern, aka present era of the Assassin's Creed franchise, and kind of kickstarted a new adventure in that regard that's continued to this day that we're looking at, even with like Valhalla and stuff like that. It's really interesting, and it kind of owes it all to Origins, I guess you could say, just in terms of it really changing, and I guess also maybe really revitalizing the franchise, or, well, at least taking it to new heights. So this one has absolutely, like, lovely architecture and design to it. It really is quite stunning, and I mean, it truly comes out here on the PlayStation 5, where it's able to fully hit the dynamic resolution scaling aspect of the experience. So that's, obviously a benefit if you were looking to revisit this particular entry in the series and have issues with your horse not getting out of the door. But yeah, there's a great balance here of like areas where you're able to go through via water. You can use boats so you can kind of swim. And then there's these large scale sort of exotic, terrifying enemies, which are obviously the crocodiles there, or maybe they're alligators. I don't know. But yeah, they're kind of terrifying monsters, that's for sure. Looks like they're out to cause problems. But yeah, you just get to use a wide range of different kind of tools and options in order to, kind of fight and battle. Again, it's a very different sort of experience when it comes to the combat and the style of play. You could definitely still, do your assassinations, but this one was also a lot more based around the idea of actually doing larger scale combat with it, which is kind of interesting. Horse! And then you use your torch in order to like go to different areas. But as you can see, you can have like different types of like arrow type designs that you can easily move through. And it's just like a very neat system in regards to changing how you interact with it. Your abilities, your weapons. You've got your camel mount, which is kind of fun and different to use. You can follow the road, full skill trees, inventory, a bit of a crafting system, which I don't necessarily think was kind of perfectly done in this one, if that makes sense. And then, of course, you've got your kind of eagle type thing. We're going to call our camel buddy, though, because he's a little bit cooler. Sorry, horsey, leaving you out in the middle of the open. I feel a little bit bad, but yeah, it's just generally a really well done Assassin's Creed title. I mean, I was definitely pleased with it when I was covering it initially when it was launching, so that was kind of exciting. And I think it offered quite a lot of interesting combative elements. You know, you get a good sense of scale, day-night cycles. The pyramids are really cool, but the thing that really gets me, you know, aside from the density of the buildings and the people going around, is just like the architecture of the temples and everything. It's just really quite stunning. To me, it really perfectly captures the whole sort of like architecture and design of the time. It looks really just absolutely amazing. At least I think so. It's a nice kind of treat if you're a fan of like the Egyptian period of time, which I am. I actually quite like it. Oh, horse on the wall ledge. You could have actually walked along there. That's a little fascinating. But yeah, it's got some neat combat. Obviously, I mean, we showed off against creatures, which isn't the same as people, but maybe we'll come across some foes that we have to take out along the way. It's mostly just kind of showing you a little bit of how it's running and everything like that. Oh, predator attack. You go in the water and fight the giant crocs. We just did that though. It's a little less exciting. Oh, those flamingos? Yeah, I forgot there were flamingos in this one. It's definitely interesting, you know, I gotta say. Go, go, go! Smashing things, so you could smash that the whole way through anyways. There's also this cool like expeditions thing, which is more of like an educational element of it. They did do some DLC that expanded the scope of this title a little bit further, and then after this one, like I think it was like Odyssey, they just went wild with like the extra content and stuff that they were adding to the games, where I think maybe it got like a little bit too much at times. I don't know if I'm crazy about that, but yeah, it was sort of neat here, decently balanced, and I really liked what they did with the world, although it's got like a bit more of a grayer look than I'm particularly used to on this one. So I think I'd like to maybe fast travel over to Alexandria. That would be kind of cool, just so we can show off the loading and stuff. Obviously still having these really classic Assassin's Creed loading menus, you know, where you gotta run around and stuff, so a little bit sped up, I would say, at least in my opinion. So the city here is really cool to me because, you know, there's a lot more density with the amount of people moving around in it, and it's just kind of a really enchanting, detailed location. That's, you know, kind of the big thing for me, and it really looks kind of cool. Oh, the amphitheater, that's nice. I wonder if they're doing anything in here. I just remember kind of like riding camels through the area and taking a look at really what this area had to offer. I feel like we should do a little bit of traversal to show that off before we get on my good pal, the camel over there, so hopefully it kind of keeps up. But yeah, you know, like all Assassin's Creed games, there's like different ledges and stuff for you to climb and get around on. Definitely well done in that regard. But it's not as climbing focused as the earlier titles were, at least in my opinion. You know, we get a little bit more technical movement. You know, I think you can grasp the environment a little better. I think you can move from building to building a little smoother, climb stuff, and a better proficiency. You just don't necessarily get as much verticality in this particular situation, just due to the location, right? This being the Egyptian place. Can we those problems for these guys? I think I want to fight them is the main thing. I want to show fighting against regular folks, but they appear to be kind of moving away, and I want to kill that guy. Guy's off his horse. I guess the others don't really care. Okay, whatever. But yeah, just kind of a really well done, great looking Assassin's Creed title. I love the improvements they made here, the changes to the world, and yet, you know, obviously in terms of like crowd density, we're not at Unity levels, but we still got an area that you know, kind of looks really cool and lively in terms of the people that are moving around in the environment. And while I love showing off all the different titles here, I believe this is the only Creed title I have on the PlayStation platform. So unless this is like super successful, I don't necessarily believe I'll be showing off the others on the platform, just because I don't have access to them. But still, just like really magnificent landscapes. And there's something like, you know, you can watch documentaries about, you know, Egypt or about the different cities, but there's something about being able to kind of play in what might be representation of it, that they kind of aim for a little bit of authenticity, at least in the environments and the culture and everything like that. It's something a little bit unreal, at least in my opinion. And I mean, you know, you can go through here and you do your Assassin's Creed missions, you be all stealthy, or you attack folks directly, and you explore this incredibly large scale world. Or you can also just kind of take it in as well. I guess you could say that's also where the kind of more educational mode as well is available as a nice little touch. But I'm just saying, some people kind of really just go in for like the combative elements of it. Whereas I also appreciate, other elements of the aesthetics of the world. I think it's really quite cool. But yeah, you can just see the combat in this one. It feels a lot better, I'd say, than the earlier titles. And it's just like geared up in a different style of play, just in terms of like how you're moving through it and battling folks. It's definitely a unique experience if you're a Creed fan that's maybe not jumped into the new era of it. Because I consider this to be the start of the new Assassin's Creed style of gameplay, right? Where you've just got this much more RPG ingrained focus, where it's more in line with the other Ubisoft open world games, of this particular era of gaming. It's definitely just the beginning of that. It really did actually kickstart all of the really intense open world type things for Ubisoft that have been, more and more synchronized over time. Definitely fascinating to think of. And then you can do like ultra combo things like rah, where you just like absolutely decimate folks. Crazy, right? And then there's the looting thing, but we kind of went off topic of what we were showcasing here because we went to kill folks. I don't know, it's just kind of a really cool game that I had a lot of fun playing and enjoying, and I know a lot of other people have, probably put even more tens of hours or whatever into this one as well, and that's cool too. It feels so expansive, right? Like, oh geez, I was not expecting to do that. I was just wanting to hang on the ledge there and kind of look over, but yeah, you just like, you get a little bit of sea, but not too much. And then I think Odyssey was a bit too much ocean for me, a little bit too large scale. That one felt kind of bloated, whereas this one was still, it was very big. Like, don't get me wrong there, this game is like insanely large scale, almost too large at times, but it still felt a little bit more honed in than Odyssey did. And then Valhalla is just insanely massive as well. It's just kind of crazy seeing how this series has progressed and changed over the years. And it's fantastic to be showing it off here, because I did actually do a review of this one when it released, video-wise, I think on PlayStation. So it's almost nice to be revisiting this one here again, and then seeing the street from where we came from and doing all that walking and stuff. And you gotta remember, this is just like a small like chunk of the world. Like, it's a tiny area. That little spot was where we're at, and then you got all these desert spots and different locations you can visit, and different tomb things to do, and kind of skills for leveling and all that. It's just a very expansive world that offers a lot of content and ways to interact with it. Like, look at the draw distance there. It's just quite lovely. Obviously it would be cool to see this one boosted for further, but I don't think that's going to be the case unless they do some sort of actual remastering effort, knowing Ubisoft. And they tend to, last gen we got a lot of upgrades of the older Creed games, which I all thought were very beneficial and improve those games in meaningful ways. So I do actually kind of hope that we get that kind of here too, because that would be really nice, actually. Just also an excuse to jump in here and play the game again. Where are you going, my archer friend? You are causing issues. I don't know, it's got like neat boss things, lots of different mechanics and things to do, different activities, real world things to experience and hop into. It's really quite exciting. Yeah, definitely. Did he just free that prisoner for me? That's kind of funny. I don't know. I think they did a really great job capturing the feeling of like what I imagine an Egyptian city to kind of be like, while also adding their own influx of like historical elements and expanding things and having different battles and stuff along the way. It's a really cool world. Did he just steal that horse? That's kind of nuts. And then also I believe this might be one of those kind of random sort of events that you can do along the way, if that makes sense. This one had some really interesting, I guess you could say, like random type moments that could pop up while you're playing. What's also neat for this one is, I believe it was the PlayStation version where I actually got my first footage of the game at PAX a long time ago. I got to go to a Ubisoft kind of like recording area for like influencers back in the day, like PAX 17 I think, which is ages ago now. Where is this guy going? Anyways, It was just really cool to, kind of get early footage and show this one off. And I just remember being so blown away by, what they were doing with this. I was like, this is unlike anything I've seen in these Assassin's Creed games before. And now, strangely enough, it feels almost, I guess you could say, tame in comparison to where they've headed. So I can't wait to see just how more insane these games get over this generation, because I think there's obviously, I don't know if they'll go in the density direction. I don't know if they'll keep sprawling outwards. There's a lot of room for them to do wild and exciting things with the series, I think. And I don't know, there's, almost limitless historical locations they could pick from. You might be like, well, they've all maybe got all the good ones, and it's like, no, there's a lot out there in history that they can do all kinds of weird settings around, right? Different cities in different periods of time. And they can just keep coming up with new ways to add it to the overall experience of what the Assassin's Creed lore is, as to say. Definitely an interesting experience, and I hope you really enjoyed this look at what is with the AI today on this. I hope you enjoyed this, revisit of Assassin's Creed Origins on PlayStation 5.